Hello, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. And a very warm welcome to this AAA InFocus webinar, which is part of your support towards the December 2025 exams. My name is Martin, and I work as Education Support Manager here at ACCA. And this session today is all about getting those marks that you can secure quickly with smart exam technique and focused practice. Now, joining me to deliver this session today is Ben Wilson, who brings a wealth of both practical and exam audit experience. Ben trained at KPMG before moving into lecturing and examining, working with ACCA, ICAEW, Kaplan, and Fast Intuition. He is an expert in advanced audit and assurance and provides his students with invaluable insights, guidance, and practical understanding drawn from his extensive knowledge and expertise. You can find more details about his credentials in the bio section of this webinar. Now, as I've mentioned, this session will help you explore effective exam technique, help you discover some smart strategies, how to deal with time management during exams, and as well a bit of discussion regarding question practice in the last few weeks ahead of your exams. Now, during this session, Ben will also be answering some of the live questions that you will have shared through the Q&A box. So just to encourage you that please do drop in those questions bright and early, and we'll do our best to cover as many questions as we possibly can in the time that we have. Now, before we get started, I just want to share a few housekeeping items with you. At the bottom of your screen, there are a number of buttons that you can use. So please do make sure that both the slides and the media player icons are selected, because you'll need to view the content on those two throughout the webinar. There is an attendee chat function, which you can use to engage with fellow participants and with Ben as well. This session is going to be quite interactive. So please do give your responses in the attendee chat function. And note that that's a public forum, so please do not share any personal information such as phone numbers and email addresses. There is an icon that resembles a file, and when you click on that, you will get access to helpful materials related to today's webinar, including direct links to the resources we refer to. Now, feel free to move things around your screen. You can resize the windows however you like. And just in case you can't hear us or you can't see the visuals, refreshing your browser usually helps. Now, if you've registered for this webinar, you'll get an email tomorrow with details on how you can watch it again. So don't panic if you miss out on anything, as you can be able to re-watch this session later. I'm going to hand over to Ben in a moment, and I'll be back with you towards the end of the session. And just to remind you that if you'd like to ask a question for Ben to respond, please do that using the Q&A button. And we have our colleagues in the back end who will also be helping to respond to your questions. So welcome everyone once again. And now over to you, Ben.
Thanks, Martin. Welcome, everybody, to this InFocus webinar. My name's Ben Wilson. As Martin's already introduced me, I'm one of the ACCA's expert tutors for this exam, and I'll be trying to give you as much insight as possible from my experience of many years of preparing students for this exam, and also my experience as an examiner and an exam marker. Thinking about things like how questions are designed, how the examiner is trying to build tricks into exam questions and how you can spot those tricks, and also how you can try and design your answer to score more marks. The examiner drops little hints into the way they write the question to give you an insight or a guide as to what's really required to score marks, and I'll be highlighting some of those things for you today. I understand a few people are getting buffering. There's not a great deal I can do. I have decent internet here. This is a live stream session. I find if I click on the media player, I've got two options, presenter and audience. When I press presenter, there's no buffering. When I press audience, there's much more buffering. I don't know if you're going to get those options. Yeah, so there's not a great deal I can do about it. I can see Alison has posted something there. So if it's annoying, apologies. I'm really not that good to look at. So just listen and go through the stuff that's on the, and I'll be going through the stuff that's on the slides. Now, it will be really interactive today. So I want you to find the attendee chat, and I want you to be posting things in there. I'm going to be asking you questions. It is going to be interactive because that way it's more engaging for you. So don't be multitasking and doing your email at the same time, and close down Snapchat. It's really not that interesting. Instagram is rubbish. This is where it's at. So today's session, we are going to have what is four. Oh, it's my slide is doing something a little bit odd. It's going to be more professional. Excellent. There we go. It's all loaded up now. So these are the things we're going to be covering. The overall theme is this is going to help you to pass AAA. But the micro detail, we're going to do some exam technique stuff. We're going to do some strategies on how you can find some easy marks. And I'm going to give you a couple of tactics on how to stay calm and how to stay in control during the exam. And then a little bit of guidance on what's really good to do over the last 3 weeks. Tatenda, you are used to my face. It's everywhere on the internet. You can't study AAA without being bombarded with a picture of me somewhere. So apologies for that, Tatenda. Right, so we are going to start with the exam technique. And because question one is so much of the exam, I really wanted to spend this session really focusing on question one. So let's have a really easy starter question. Fastest fingers first. How many marks are there for question one? Let's see how long the delay and the lag is on the attendee chat. I've not had any answers yet, which suggests there's quite a long lag. This is a helpful thing for me to know as I'm going through the session, because I'll need to wait for the attendee chat to catch up a little bit. Excellent. Natalie, you were fastest finger first, and we've got loads of people coming in with 50. Brilliant. So it is 50. It is half the exam. And if you can pass the first question, if you can score 30 marks in the first question, you are well on your way to passing the exam. So this is a classic question one. And I'm saying it's a classic question one because it does the things that the examiner normally tests in question one. There's always something to do with risk at the start. Very often, business risks and ROMMs, as we're seeing here. Sometimes it's audit risk. Not as often, but sometimes it's audit risk. And sometimes it is only audit risk or only ROMMs. There's no business risks. But most exams, more normally, there is business risks and ROMMs. And that's because it allows the examiner to test a wider range of things rather than one big ROMMs question. Now, those of you who are resitting the exam will be saying, and who sat it in September will be going, Ben, that is not true. In my exam in September, I got 24 or 26 marks on a single ROMMs question. Give me a yes in the chat panel, in the attendee chat, if that was you. Did you get that horrible 24 or 26 mark individual risk question? If you did, you have my sympathy. Because as Yang has said, question one is really exhausting, really exhausting. And when you get one massive risk question for 26 marks, like Ital had and Habib had and Nirunjan had and Tende, it's horrendously awful. It's so hard to manage your time. But a lot of the tips I'm going to give you today are going to really help you if that happens for you in your exam. So this was typical because business risks and ROMMs. Then it has audit procedures. Again, very normal in question one to get audit procedures for something like 7 marks. If you don't get them in question one, you're going to get a lot of them in question 2 and question 3 because it's a key skill for an advanced auditor to be able to design audit procedures. And then finally, part D, here is a typical classic ethics question. Very common for you to get an ethics question at the end of question 1. You'll also have ethics embedded throughout question 2 and question 3 of the exam. So you'll see it everywhere, but you will very often have a specific ethics question right here in question 1. So this is very normal. This is exactly what I'd expect to see the style of question you'll get in your exam, which is why I picked this one for today's session. So it's most likely to be useful for you. So business risks, when it comes up, is normally for 8 to 10 marks. Here, it's 10 marks. And that means, well, you're going to need... sorry, this is very laggy here. Business risks are always 2 marks per well-explained risk. The general rule in AAA is it's 1 mark per well-explained point. But business risks are special. Business risks are different. Business risks, double trouble. So you get 2 marks per well-explained risk. And so that means you're looking to write 4 or 5 risks. If you only came up with 3, but they were good ones, that's absolutely fine. If you tried to come up with 7 or 8, recipe for failing the exam. The examiner's comments always refer to people who try to put too many points. Weaker students went for 8 or 9 business risks. Weaker students went for 7, 8, 9 ROMMs. What is wrong with writing too many business risks? Hit me in the attendee chat. It's a terrible idea to come up with 7 or 8 business risks here. A terrible idea. Why is it such a bad idea? Why do students fail when they try to do too many business risks? And I'm hoping someone's typing. It's lagging. Yeah, time. Time. You will overrun on time. And that means it hurts you later in the exam. Also, it means that your risks won't have enough depth. So as a general rule for this exam, not just business risks, a rule for everywhere in this exam is you are better to have fewer points that you expand on, that you evaluate in sufficient detail. Because that's the verb here, evaluate. It's not list, it's not state. Evaluate means you need a bit of detail. You've got to go to town here. You need to impress me a little bit. So you need depth to your point, and you can only do that if you spend enough time on that point. So how do you write a decent answer to a business risk question? You've got to use the little clues that the examiner gives you. And look here, right in that little bit of background in this exhibit, it refers to key performance indicators. Now, a business risk is something that is going to impact the company. It's not the audit. You explain how it impacts the company. Its trade, its performance. Really, you want to make it a specific answer, tailored to the actual exam, to the scenario you're given. And here, we're given key performance indicators, things that how the company measures its own performance, what it needs to do well in. And so your business risks ideally should refer back to how this problem could impact the ability to meet one of those KPIs. How many sentences per point? Ite has said, I generally go for about 2 sentences per point, 2 or 3 maximum, because I try to write as briefly as I can. So ideally, a good answer here will link to those key performance indicators to tailor the answer, to make it specific to the scenario. And something the examiner says that they hate, they absolutely hate, is speculating. Speculating means making things up. Speculating means starting your point with if. And that if is something that you're going, oh, just thinking of a potential, a maybe, a something that could go on. The examiner hates that. They hate it. Because what they want you to do is to use the clues you are given in the scenario. They will tell you enough information for each business risk. They will give you that information in the scenarios. Your job is to go into the exhibits and find the clues about the business risks. So don't speculate. And speculate means you're just coming up with the idea from here. What you are trying to do in business risk particularly is start with a fact from the scenario. And ideally, link it to at least one more fact in the scenario. That's what a really good business risk will do. Okay. The ROMMs question, which comes next here. Very often that comes next. That's the second question. So 16 marks here. Evaluate and prioritize the ROMMs that we're going to be considering in planning the audit of the group. So we're at the planning phase here. Before we're doing the audit, we are getting ready to do the audit. And to get ready to do the audit, we are assessing where the problems might be. Because if we assess where the problems might be, where the numbers might be materially misstated, then we can focus our attention and our audit work on those areas. it's a bit like you for your exam. When you're planning your revision, you focus on your weaker areas because that's where you need to improve. And Indari, thank you. I'm looking better. That's kind. Better than Tende, the hard time he was giving me earlier. I love a ROMS question. Absolutely love it when I see the ROMS question because I know there are 3 really, really easy marks available. And those 3 easy marks are for getting materiality right, for doing my materiality paragraph. It will be the first paragraph of my ROMS answer. And I'll state the range. Whatever it is, they'll tell me how to calculate materiality. Here it was set, it's based on revenue, because it tells me in the scenario, base your answer on revenue, materiality on revenue. So I will get marks for doing 0.5% times the revenue figure, 1% times the revenue figure, and stating that range. Such easy marks, really easy marks. There are so many hard marks to earn in AAA, but these are some of the easiest. And then I have to set my materiality level somewhere in that range of 0.5 to 1% of revenue. And here's another tip for you. You set a lower materiality level, a smaller materiality level when it's a higher risk audit, because a smaller materiality level is less tolerance. Right? This is us saying we need to look harder for problems. We care more about small issues because I'm expecting to find more problems because it's a high risk audit. So I always set the materiality at the low level because it's always a high risk audit, because there will always be things in the scenario for me to be able to justify why it's a high risk audit, because otherwise the question won't work. So I will always set it at the 0.5% and then find something in the scenario to tell me why it's a particularly high risk audit, this one. Now, I know I'm going to bag 3 marks. I'm going to bag 3 marks for my materiality. So here, there's 16 marks in total. I minus off 3 marks for materiality because they're in my pocket already. So I now need 13 more marks from my actual risks. And because there are 3 marks per well-explained ROM, ROMs are extra special. That means that I'm going to need something like 4.3 ROMs. So in the chat panel, what is the maximum number of ROMs that I'm going to write? If it tells me I need 4.3 ROMs, what's the maximum I'm going to write, given the advice I was giving you on business risks? So hit me in the chat panel. Lots of you are going for 5. Mohammed, you're going for 5 ROMs. Syed and Stacey have gone for 4. Loads of you are saying 5s. 5 is safe, Rudra Priya. You would think, wouldn't you, Priya, that 5 would be safe? But why not go for 6 to be even safer? Yeah, because then if you go for 6, or you'll be even safer if you go for 7. Because if you go for 7, you will definitely run out of time. And you will definitely not answer some of the other questions on the exam paper. Go for 7 and you are much, much more likely to fail the exam. So we are going for 4. I would be going for here. Right? That would be the maximum I'd be going for, because there just is not time to go for any more than that. You will definitely overrun on time if you try to fully evaluate 5 or 6 ROMs. Right? So that's a really valuable lesson to you. Those of you who are saying 6, you've got to take a long, hard look in the mirror and get away from that and go for 3 or 4 that are well evaluated, where you're using lots of information from the scenario to tell a more detailed, more in-depth story. So what does a good ROM look like? Each of these 3 or 4 ROMs that I'm going to be writing up, every one of them, I'm always going to assess whether the issue is material. Of course it's material. It wouldn't be my answer otherwise. I'm going to assess it. So I'm going to say it's material by referring it back to the materiality level. It's material by size. It's material by nature for this reason. So I assess the materiality of the issue. I then will explain what's wrong. And what you will see the examiner's answer do is they'll often write out the accounting standard at length. So if it's something to do with, let's say, capitalizing research and development expenditure. So capitalizing development expenditure. And we think they've capitalized too much. They're capitalizing things that they shouldn't. The examiner's answer will often write out all of the capitalization criteria in detail. And there just isn't time for you to do that. You've got to be a bit selective about what you choose to write, because there isn't time to write the standard out fully, as the examiner's answers do. You have to pick out the bits that have gone wrong. So they, one of the criteria for capitalizing is whether technical feasibility has been proven, or there's an intention to complete development of the asset. So let's say the technical feasibility, if that hasn't been proven because the thing we're building is still at test phase. So technical feasibility hasn't been proven because we're still at test phase. So I'd be saying that rather than writing the accounting standard out at length, because there's a compromise here. I know there's buffering. There's really nothing I can do about it, and I'm not sure there's anything ACCA can do about it. So I understand it's frustrating if there's buffering, and I know that I am amazingly beautiful to look at. And just look at my amazing facial expressions. I know you want to be seeing these as they're happening, but if they're a bit delayed, you're better off just not worrying about it and focusing on what you can control, which is watching the presentation. So we're explaining so listen up and watch at the same time. Explain any incorrect accounting treatment. Then this is what a better answer will do. It will add depth. It will add a calculation in, a simple percentage change. It will say management might have had an incentive to overstate this number for this reason, and link it back to something else in the scenario. They'll bring it in with another audit risk somewhere else or another ROMM to link it in with that. They'll add some depth, a little bit of stardust, right? That's what a great answer will do. If you can't find a way to do that, don't worry about it. It's really not that big a deal. And then this is what an answer will definitely do, a good answer, is they will say the specific, precise accounts that have been under or overstated. It doesn't say profit overstated. It will say operating expenses understated. So you don't go big ticket. You don't say assets. You say intangible assets. So you're precise about how you are explaining the impact on the financial statements, and you will get a mark for doing that. Okay. If you want to see an amazing approach to a ROMM's question, there's loads. I've recorded the debrief videos this time for ACCA's pre-mock, for the December pre-mock. You're going to see me doing this in those debrief videos. And if you go on to, if you're a YouTube person, you can find a load of videos of me doing this on my YouTube channel as well. It's not lagging for some people. Lucky you, you're getting the facial expressions live. Other people, maybe it's your internet, but there's no point worrying about it. The other thing that we have to do, because it tells us specifically in this question, is to prioritize your top 2 risks. And I know that someone's already asked about this. How do I decide which 2 I prioritize? And the answer is, it doesn't really matter. The marks are for doing this. The marks are for prioritizing your top 2 with a justification, and a reasonable justification. It doesn't really matter which of your risks you prioritize. As long as you have something specific from the scenario that you're able to use to say, this is a particularly big risk. I've prioritized this risk for this reason. It doesn't matter which ones you pick. Just pick 2, ones that you find easy to explain. I like looking for things like the accounting treatment's definitely wrong here. I know it's wrong because of what I've been told. Or there's a huge amount of judgment here in this area, and so there's more scope for bias or error. Or the error that I've picked out isn't just material, it's a whopper. It would turn profit to a loss if this was wrong. It's so big. Wow, got to prioritize this one. So it doesn't really matter. Right, procedures then comes next. This was for 7 marks here, and we are seeing the typical wording here, the latest wording that the examiner is using for procedures questions. If you see any questions that are worded differently to this, not in this style, it's probably an old question. The wording here is design the principal audit procedures to be performed in respect of something really specific, the expenditure about this store enhancement program. Now, procedures are 1 mark per well-explained procedure, always. So here you're going to need a maximum of 7. But based on the chats we were having earlier, we're looking at maybe 5 or 6. If you can come up with 5 good ones, and you've used all your time to come up with 5 good ones, you're in a great position to pass. If you go on and try and write 7 or 8 or 9, again, it's a recipe for overrunning. You cannot do everything that you would like to in this exam. This is what will go into a good procedure. A good procedure will always start, for me, with something specific from the scenario, something I'm trying to verify. I find it's a really great approach with procedures to start with something specific in the scenario. Rather than trying to come up with it out of my own head, I start with the scenario. Here's a fact, something that I think might be wrong. And then I will come up with a source document, something that will verify it. I love things like a contract or a bank statement because they're kind of credible documents. I really don't like discussion with management. I don't like board minutes because these are internal things and they're more subject to bias. But maybe they're the only things that I can rely on. Maybe they're the only source of information that's available. I love a third-party document. That's my absolute favorite. But yeah, so things like contracts, a sale and purchase agreement, title deeds, a bank statement. I love that sort of evidence. And then I have an explanation. The fact and the evidence will get me maybe half a mark. The explanation will be my other half mark. And here I'm explaining how the test works. I'm explaining how it gives evidence over the thing that I want to give evidence over. Now, this is the sort of wording that I'm talking about. This is what we're seeing in the examiner's latest style. And it's that they say principal audit procedures. That means principal means main ones. And for it to be a main one, it needs to address something that genuinely might be wrong with this expenditure, something that might actually be wrong. So it's addressing a serious risk factor, something we actually think is going to be incorrect about the expenditure with this store enhancement program. So if you say something like, let's get the breakdown, let's get a breakdown of expenditure and let's add it up, let's cast it. Now, that is the sort of procedure that an auditor would do. I mean, back in the days when I was actually auditing, I'd have got my calculator out and actually added them up. Then in the time I was auditing, you'd have used Excel to do it for you. And now your auditing software will just add it up automatically and tell you that it is automatic, that it has been added correctly. Getting it wrong in terms of the adding up is not a serious risk factor. It's just not good. It could be wrong. The audit software will have a look at it, but really, it's not going to have been added up incorrectly because it's all computerized. So it's not a principal audit. It's not a main audit procedure. It's not addressing a key risk for you to say add it up. So it's very unlikely to score a mark. So a principal audit procedure. I've asked. Someone's asked, can I give an explanation of one? Well, you're going to see, if you watch the debrief videos for the ACCA pre-December mock, you will see me doing so. And you can go on my channel, on both my YouTube channel and also on the ACCA's channel, you'll see me doing lots of audit procedures. But it will start with a fact, like the amount of money that's been spent, 5 million. It will then say, agree this to the bank statement. That might be evidence. And then an explanation would be to ensure that the figure is accurately stated or the date is accurate or something like that. Recalculating is probably half a mark, probably not a principal procedure. Maybe, but maybe not. So then what this question does, which again is wording that we're seeing a lot, is it is really specific about what it's asking you. It doesn't just say audit procedures over the store enhancement program. It's particularly about the expenditure, the amount of money that's been spent. And so each of your procedures has to relate back to expenditure. So board minutes won't get you a full mark. Board minutes probably won't get you anything. The only reason board minutes would score is if you are confirming something that is only really known at board level. Or it can be verified at board by going to those board minutes. So approval of something. Has it been signed off by the board? You would go to the board minutes for that, and that would be a really good source of evidence. So you can score for board minutes, but you need to explain why it's a relevant test for whatever it is that you're auditing. Okay, the last one. The examiner's up to their usual tricks here. One requirement, Part D, but it has 2 questions in it. Very, very common here. And those 2 questions, we're going to need 2 subheadings for. One of them is the discussion of your ethical issues, and the other one is recommending actions. So you've got a subheading for your discussion and then one for actions. And I'm probably going to have 3 or 4 points under each because it's 1 mark per well-explained point. And a good answer is balanced. A good answer doesn't have 7 points of discussion and no actions. A good answer doesn't have no discussion and all actions. It has a balance between them. So something like 3 or 4 under each, depending on how easy it is I'm finding to come up with points under each one as to whether I have 3 or 4. Now, for an ethical issue to score, your ethical point, it has to be tailored to the scenario. If you are writing a textbook definition of an ethical threat, like a self-interest threat, a self-interest threat or self-review threat, and then a textbook definition, like the auditor is checking their own work, or a self-interest threat, the auditor would benefit if the client performs well, you will score nothing. Even if self-review threat is in the mark scheme, if you just write self-review threat and you write a textbook definition of self-review threat, you will score nothing. Oh, wow. Wow. You score nothing even though your answer is right. Because you're at this level, the credit is for you showing you really understand what a self-review threat is. And for you to understand it, you have to explain why it exists in this scenario. Not just, I've learned a textbook and I'm regurgitating a definition. So if you think you are writing, if you feel like you're writing a definition in an ethics question, stop. Because you won't score for it. You only score for it if your ethics points relate to the scenario. And because it's a discussion, this isn't always the case, but it very often is. If the verb is discuss or the verb is evaluate, you will very often get a mark for a conclusion. Because I like to play the game, if I see the verb being evaluate or discuss, I put a conclusion because there's very often a mark for it. By the way, there's no mark. You don't need to put a conclusion in question 1, part A, the business risks or the ROMMs, because there won't be a mark for that. And I know some of you are going to say, oh, but Ben, in some of the examiner's comments, there's a conclusion for the prioritization of the ROMMs. You can conclude, you can do your prioritization of your ROMMs in a conclusion if you want, or in the body of your text. It doesn't matter either one, but I just do it in the body of my text so I don't forget to do it. But whatever. Either one is fine. Right, I've done my usual thing of overrunning slightly on time, so I will, and I want to make sure I've got a good amount of time at the end for your questions, so I'm going to keep moving. Now, I'm going to refer back to that same question here for some smart strategies for securing easy marks. And you're going to get advice here that might be different to what your tutor says. So you might be studying with someone else, not me. I know some of my students are actually in this room, but some people in this room are studying with another tutor who might be giving you different advice. There is not only one way to approach the AAA exam. Okay? I have my recommended approach. You don't have to follow it. I recommend these things because I find that they work for my students in the way that I teach. But you might get slightly different advice from your tutor. Right? So you don't have to take this advice, but at least think about it. At least think about it. Right, look at Part C and Part D here compared to Part A and Part B. Actually, stop. Let's stop here. What is the biggest danger in question 1? You hit me in the attendee chat. What do you think the biggest danger for you is in question 1? How are you most likely to fail because of question 1? What is it about question 1 that is really dangerous? Okay, Mohammed, Hannah, Daniel, Yana, Priya, Vijay, Aisha, Sandra, Zakaya, Manik, Sentaka. Wow. The first 11 people said exactly what I'm thinking, and not all of you are my students. It's long, it's boring, but it's long and time consuming. You can overrun on time here and failed the exam as a result. That is what happens to a phenomenal number of students in question one, is they overrun massively on time. And they run out of, and then they fail the exam as a result. That happens to so many students. Now, the bits of question one that are most dangerous are the risk parts, because you have to do so much on those. So which requirements do you do first? I mean, this is appearing in the wrong order. It's very obvious what I think are the requirements you should do first. Do you do the simpler questions? Do you do the ones where it's much easier to stick to your time and get confident and make up some time and be in a really good position? Do you do those first? Or do you do the awful, time-consuming, really hard, morale-sapping, confidence-destroying risk parts? So do you start by destroying your confidence? Or do you, and overrunning on time, or do you start off on a good foot and stick to time and pick up the easy marks? Right, you can see what I think from the way I'm talking about this. You can make your own decisions. You are an adult, right? For me, it makes massive sense to start here with Part C and Part D. Because for Part A and B, you've got to read Exhibits 2, 3, and 4. And I know that business risks and ROMMs are time-consuming, boring, and hard. And I don't like any of those things. I know that I'm good at audit procedures, and I know that they're quick to answer. And I know I only need to look at one exhibit. So I'm not going to overwhelm myself with information. I'm going to go straight to Exhibit 4, and I'm going to answer my audit risks, sorry, my audit procedures. Then I'm going to go to Exhibit 5, and I'm going to do Part D, the ethics. So I would start here with Part C and Part D. You would not believe how many people in this exam start with the business risks and the ROMMs, use all of their time there, and then don't answer Part C and Part D. Or they have a little go at Part C and Part D. You've got to bag the easy marks, right? I would be doing the risk question last of all, because it's hard and time-consuming and boring. And if you start off being bored, you're less likely to do your best in the rest of the exam. Okay, so that's my first bit of advice for you. Be tactical about which parts of the question you do first. Mohammed, you've asked about, should we start with question 2? And if you've looked at any of my advice online, you will see that the answer is yes. I start the exam with question 2, and then I do question 3, because I find it easier to stick to my time on those questions because they're smaller. There's less places to fall into the examiner's traps. So I do question 2, then I do question 3, then I come back to do question 1, and I'm tactical then, and I do Part C and Part D. And the very last thing I do in the exam is my business risks and my ROMMs. You are an adult. You can decide for yourself what is the best approach for you. If you're going to win a prize, right? If you're going to be that amazing person who scores in the 80s for AAA and wins a prize, if you're going to score 70%, if you're going to score 60%, it doesn't matter what order you do the questions in, because you're going to pass anyway. If, like the massive majority of people who sit AAA, you're going to score in the 40s or the 50s, you're going to be a marginal student, then being tactical about where to start and where to spend your time really can help to boost your mark by 1, 2, 3, 4 marks and get you over the line. It really, really does work. Which risks do you spend time on in your business risks and your ROMMs? How do you know which ones to spend time on? The clue will be, for both business risks and the ROMMs, is that you'll be given quite a lot of information about it. If it's a business risk where you're given one little tiny crumb, it's the examiner saying, don't talk about this one. If the examiner gives you 2 or 3 bits of information about receivables or about something, then it's a sure sign that you're supposed to focus there. So if you've got several facts that you can link together, obviously you will only be talking about risks that are material, because if they're not material, then they shouldn't make it into your answer, because you're evaluating and prioritizing the risks of material misstatement. Natalie, I'm going to come back to your point in a second. You said I'll be drained if you left A and B of question 1 too last. Actually, I'm going to deal with it now. Okay, Natalie, you'll be drained when you are doing Part A and Part B of question 1. That's 26 marks. You'll be drained for 26 marks of the exam. A quarter of the exam you will be drained for. But if you start with Part A and Part B of question 1, you will then be drained emotionally, mentally, physically for 74% of the exam, the remainder of it. The remaining 74% of the exam, you will spend second guessing yourself about how your ROMM split was. And it went so badly and I overrun on time and I can't believe it and I'm going to fail. Ah! That's what you'll be doing for 3/4 of the exam. That's what a lot of students do. Again, Natalie, not you, because you're going to pass, right? And you're probably going to score in the 60s or 70s. But for many students who are going to score in the 40s and the 50s, that's how they will go through the rest of the exam, with their confidence drained out of them for 3/4 of the exam. So yes, you are right. They are not going to do their best on 1/4 of the exam, but they're going to do better on 3/4 of it. And I like those maths. Right, which risks do we spend time on? Where you're given lots of information, where the impact of the risk is material, and where there is nothing in the scenario that mitigates the risk. So if they tell you that credit control is a risk, but we have insurance for that, and we're working with a debt recovery agency, or we've done something to manage the risk, then you don't talk about it because it's been mitigated and therefore it won't score. Where are the easiest scenario facts? Hit me in the chat panel. Where would the easiest bits be? And this is my insight for you from my time as an examiner. This is what they train you to do at examiner school. Where do you put the easiest facts? The ones that are really simple to explain. The ones that most students can score marks for if they use these facts. Where do you put these ones? The easy ones. Where will they be in the exhibits? Ha ha! Camel Deep! Are you trained as an examiner? Priscilla, are you trained as an examiner? And you, Naranjan, you're thinking like an examiner. They put the easiest bits at the end. Why do they do that? Well, it's because the weaker student who can't manage their time as effectively gets bogged down and stuck in the first bit of the scenario where the hard stuff is. And it's only the better students who get to the easy stuff at the end. It's a way of differentiating between the students, right? It's a way of spreading them out more so that the better students do better and the worse students do worse, right? They put the easy scenario facts at the end. But now you know that, you could just look at the end of the scenario and see if there's anything easy there. Wouldn't that be a really good tactic? Wouldn't it? It would, wouldn't it? As an absolute minimum, you've got to make sure you get through the whole scenario, right? And if you get to a hard technical thing that you can't really understand, just move on, because there will be easier things towards the end. Syed, I'm trying to help you to pass here, which is score 50% or in the 50s, right? I'm not trying to help you to win a prize. My goal here is to help the student who's marginal to score a few more marks. And to do that, to win a prize, you've got to be looking for all the embedded facts. You've got to be dealing with all the hard stuff. You have to, if you're going to win a prize. But if you just want to pass this exam, then it's much better to just be tactical and look for easy marks, and they will be at the end of the scenarios. Okay, so there will be easier stuff at the end of each scenario. There will be harder, more technical issues at the start. Your job is to not get thrown off track by the hard bits, and that's my advice to you. How do you stay in control of your time in the exam and reduce your stress levels? This is how I would recommend that you approach the exam. So you spend 45 minutes on question 2, maximum. 45 minutes on question 3, maximum. So you've now used an hour and a half of the exam time. I then use whatever's left to do question 1. Ideally, that's at least 1 hour and 45 minutes. But, you know, life gets in the way and things happen, and you may well overrun slightly in question 2 and question 3. You're going to try not to, but it happens because you're human. I am allowing 2.25 minutes per technical mark. I know there's been a bit of chat about professional skills marks in the chat panel. The professional skills marks are awarded across the entire question. So in question 1, there's 10 professional skills marks across the requirements. So you don't quite know where they are within the requirements. So I don't think you can allocate time to them very effectively. And so this is an example of how I do my time allocation. I've already done question 2 and question 3. I've finished them on time because I am a hero. I'm so good and I'm so disciplined. I'm kidding, obviously. I've just been trained well and I've practiced a lot. And I've done question 2 and question 3 on time, 45 minutes for each one. That leaves me 1 hour and 45 minutes for question 1. Yes, I know that means I'm using my reading time, all 15 minutes of it in question 1, and that is what I would do. And I'm then going to start at part C, and I'm going to do it in about 15 minutes. I'm then going to go on to part D, and I'm going to do it in about 15 minutes. And then I leave my balance of my time for doing question 1, part A and part B. And I do them together in whatever time I've got left. It's, for me, much more efficient to plan and write my business risks and my ROMMs together, right? Because they go hand in hand. I'm reading the same information, the same exhibits to do my business risks, but explaining the impact on the company, and my ROMMs, where I'm explaining the impact on the audit. I do the two of them together. And so I would allocate my time for them together. And I would almost certainly run out of time as I'm writing up my answer to my business risks and my ROMMs because I've got so much to do in that 1 hour and 15 minutes. So I am allocating my time overall for the question. So here, 1 hour and 45 minutes. And I'm allocating my time for the requirements as I'm going through, because that helps me to stay focused on the amount of time that I have and to stay on time. It is critical to get the best chance of passing this exam that you answer all the questions. And that means being disciplined with your time so that you have the opportunity to do that, to answer all the questions. I appreciate it's a little bit quick, but I want to make sure that I'm getting on to leave enough time to answer some of your questions. So this is what I'd be advising you do over the remaining time until the exam. This is my absolute minimum, by the way. In the rest of this week, because you've got the ACCA are releasing the pre-December 25 mock. Actually, I'm going to stop here a second. This is what I recommend if you're a self-study student. If you are studying with a training provider, if you're one of my students, or if you're studying with another training provider, then you should follow the training program that they are giving you because they've been building up to it. Right? But if you're a self-study student, these are things that would be really good for you to be doing over the remaining couple of weeks. So do that pre-December 25 mock, do it on the practice platform. And if you can, do it to time. It's a really good set of questions. They are actual recent past exam questions that you will not have seen elsewhere because ACCA haven't released them to the market. So these are really, really good questions. And the things, and doing them to time means that you are practicing your problem-solving skills. Right? So do it to time without having looked at the answers. That is the way that you will get the absolute best out of sitting that mock. You will notice that the debrief videos have been recorded by a handsome, funny, engaging, gifted, generally wonderful human being. Yeah, they've been recorded by me. So they'll be released on the ACCA's YouTube channel on the 14th of November. And you'll see me actually doing a few of the questions genuinely against the clock. So you will see me stressed as I'm answering some of those questions. But hopefully you'll find it really useful because they are practical. They are not me showing you the examiner's answer. It's not me highlighting the examiner's answer. They are me showing you how to generate a genuinely good answer, passing standard answer in the time that you have. But they are realistic. And those of you who love pointing out errors, you're going to be in for a treat because I make mistakes while I'm answering them. And those mistakes stay in the answer. So if you're someone who loves to highlight that something's marginally wrong, you are in for a massive treat because you're seeing me doing these questions under exam conditions. So they're more useful as a study tool, but they are not perfect. I would, next week, once you've used that fantastic mock and the brilliant debrief videos, really my advice to you is to work through as many recent past exam questions as you can. And you will get the best out of your question practice if you're doing it to time. So those are 2 recent past exams that you can get on the practice platform. And the great thing about recent past exams is you get the examiner's comments. And that tells you why good students passed, why weaker students failed, and you can benefit from those insights. And in the week after, I would be doing 2 more full mock exams. And you'll notice I've just picked the 4 latest exams that the ACCA has released. you can go back earlier. So go and do March, June. If you want more, go and do March, June 23. Go and do some of the exams from September 22 and December 22. Don't go any earlier than September 22 because those are old style questions, not the current format with the professional skills marks. But you've got loads of recent past exams to go at on the practice platform. I would just be working through those. Those are the very, very best practice. Okay. That is it for my formal bit of the presentation. So time for Q&A. And I'm going to go open up my Q&A box. I've been, the team have been setting out questions for me. Okay. How do you write for sustainability related questions? The same way you write for any question. You use the scenario to write a tailored answer to the specific requirement. There's nothing special about sustainability questions. They're just like any other type of ACCA question. They will give you lots of information in the scenario for you to use. Your job is to run with it. Got a really specific question about leases, but I'm going to use that to answer that question. I'm going to talk about financial reporting a bit more generally. So leases and IFRS 16 leases. The SBR or financial reporting content that is examinable for AAA is IFRS. Right? It doesn't matter which of the, if you're doing UK or international or Ireland or whatever, it is IFRS that is examinable for you. About 10, maybe 15 marks in the AAA exam will rely on your knowledge of accounting standards. There will be some audit risks where they have incorrectly accounted for things. And you can only pick those things out if you know the correct accounting. So it's not the SBR exam, but financial reporting is really important for this exam. So number one, you really should have done SBR before doing AAA. And if you haven't, and you've already entered the exam, you're going to have to do your best, but you're at a bit of a disadvantage. It's a really good idea to revise your accounting standards in the run up to this exam. But they're not going to test you on all the tiny micro details of all the really mini stuff. It's more of a kind of like high level. Have you got a broad understanding of what that accounting standard is trying to achieve? So in my course, what we do is go through each of the different areas of accounting standards. And from an audit perspective, we kind of go, what could go wrong with this? What could go wrong in the accounting for this? And that's where we kind of focus. And that's what I'd recommend that you do. When you go through your SBR notes, kind of going through each accounting standard and going, if I was an audit examiner, what might I say that they've done wrong here with the accounting so I could build a question around it? And by thinking like that, that's the kind of level of knowledge that you kind of want to have. Awais, how much knowledge is needed for the AAA exam? If you give me someone with amazing knowledge, great knowledge, and rubbish exam technique for AAA, they will definitely fail. If you give me someone with a little bit of knowledge, great exam technique, they will definitely pass. Knowledge is necessary, but not sufficient for this exam. Exam technique is way more important. So that's why your exam preparation should really focus on practicing questions and building your exam technique. That's why my course focuses hugely on all those elements as we go into revision. And I know that anyone who's studying with a quality tuition provider, you will find that there's a lot of question practice at this stage rather than memorizing stuff, because the knowledge just really isn't that important. How important is it to get your work marked? Yanwar has asked that. So it depends who's marking it. The value of it being marked, a lot of the value of it being marked is that you take it more seriously as the person doing it. You actually have a proper go at that question because you know someone else is going to be reading it. Now, a really good idea for you, if you haven't got access to a quality tuition provider with marking services, is for you to get a study buddy and for you to swap answers and mark each other's and give each other comments and feedback. That way, you will both take the questions more seriously, which is one of the biggest benefits of marking. And when you're reading their work, you'll probably see stuff that you think, oh, I either really like that, I'll do that, or I don't like that, and I won't do that approach that that student has come up with. So marking is important, but it's probably a bit late for you to get access to a quality marking now. Like, you wouldn't be able to get on my course, for example. It's way too late. It gets full much earlier. And most quality training providers will be the same as that. But you can definitely get a study buddy at this stage. Katerina has asked about prioritizing. Any tips to do a quick prioritizing? Yeah, if you're running out of time, Katerina, just pick your first 2 ROMs. Just make those the ones that you prioritize. Just pick the first 2 and just find any reason to say why you've prioritized them. You're just playing the game here, right? Yeah, they might not be genuinely the biggest ROMs, but whatever, you're just playing the game. Ayush has asked about, do you need a conclusion in question 1? You probably asked this question before I said about this in the session. You can have a conclusion at the end of your ROM's answer where you say, these are the 2 risks I prioritized and why. I find that's really repetitive when I write that conclusion. It repeats a lot of stuff I've written elsewhere. So I just don't have that conclusion. And I have at the bottom of my first ROM and my second ROM, I say risk prioritized because, and then I say it's, particularly judgmental, or it's definitely wrong, or it's hugely material, or something like that. Jesse has asked, what study strategy for someone who's only covered 30% of the syllabus and is on self-study? Jesse, you can't go back in time and put more work in earlier, because that really is the best advice. You can't do that. You are where you are. What can you do for now to give yourself the best chance of passing? Jesse, you are going to have to be a tactics person. You are going to have to be super focused. So that means you start with exam questions, actually doing them yourself. And when you can't do something, when there's something in there that you can't do, you go back to the textbook, or you go to your training provider, or you go online and find a video or whatever that explains how to do that thing. So you're going to have to do it that way around. You're going to have to reverse things, Jesse. You can't learn it all and then go, now I'm going to apply it, because you haven't got time. You're going to have to go laser exam focused, just do exam questions. Where you can't do something, then work it out. Work out how to do it. That's the approach you're going to have to take, given you've got very little time left and you haven't studied 70% of the syllabus. That's not why I'm advising anyone who's starting from scratch, but that is good advice for you. Gaining professional skills marks, Hannah has asked, how do I get professional skills marks? So when you look at the marking schemes for professional skills marks, they're really repetitive. They're really repetitive. It's always the same sorts of things that score marks. So include numbers in your answer. Right? Do some simple calculations and talk about them. That will earn you professional skills marks. Make sure you're basing everything on facts in the scenario. Right, don't speculate. Make sure that you're answering the question that's been asked and answer all parts of it. So if it asks you for ethical issues and actions, then you need to have a section for ethical issues and actions. If it sounds like what I'm saying here, Hannah, is really simple, that's because it is. Earning most of the professional skills marks is just for doing basic housekeeping type things. Are you answering the questions? Are you developing your points? Is your answer appropriately balanced? Did you focus on the riskier bits? All that sort of stuff that a good student just does naturally are the kind of things that you're trying to do to earn professional skills marks. Mainly, Hannah, don't worry about them too much. That's my other bit of advice. Like, if you're spending your whole time going, hold on, where am I going to earn the professional skills marks? Then you're probably not going to write the best technical answer that you can. And a good technical answer almost always scores plenty of professional skills marks anyway, without even really trying. So don't worry about it too much, Hannah, but do simple things. Do simple things well, and you will score professional skills marks. There's a load of stuff on the ACCA's YouTube channel that I've recorded for them on professional skills marks. So you can go there if you want to. Basil, why do students fail AAA? You're doing it for the first time, and we'll make this the last question. They fail AAA because they often underestimate it. And they approach it in the same way as they do other ACCA exams. Do not focus on knowledge. Do not focus on numbers, because there aren't very many of them. You need to focus on exam technique. That is what will get you to pass. Okay, that is a whistle-stop tour, and Martin, I'm 30 seconds over, but I think that's probably okay. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I'm going to hand back over to Martin now to finish up, and good luck for your exam, everyone. Good luck, good luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ben. Perfect place to end it for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for your engagement. Thank you for taking part in the webinar, for your responses and lots of questions. We haven't been able to address all of them, but we've tried to cover, the most asked questions, and of course, trying to ensure we've got all the guidance that we can share with you for your exam preparation. So as we wrap it up, just to remind you that we have provided to you the resources that we've been referring to. So if you head over to the folder that looks like a file icon, you'll find all those resources there. For those who've had challenges with the lag and all, we apologize for that. You'll be able to watch the recording of this session without that lag. So please do look out for an email tomorrow with a link to access, or you can just watch it on this same link that you used to join. So thanks everyone, and special appreciation also to everyone in the back end who's helped bring this session together. And from the rest of us here at ACCA, it's best of luck towards your exam preparation. Thank you and goodbye for now.